lọ́jọ́kọ́jọ́ làbẹ́wò ìkúkú dùkú lóko Podium International wọ́n ti wà tipẹ́tipẹ́ látìgbà tí wọ́n ti ń bàbọ̀ wọn ò fìgbà kan tẹ́rì o wọ́n ti wá ṣe bẹ̀bẹ̀ wọ́n ti gbé bẹ̀bẹ̀ dé Podium Cinema ni wọ́n tún gbé dé Podium Cinema lórí YouTube ẹ fọ́lọ̀ wọn kẹ́ ẹ láìkì wọn kẹ́ ẹ subscribe ibẹ̀ lẹ́tì mọ̀ wọ àwọn àjẹ́ àbálẹ̀ fíìmù ẹ̀dọ̀kí fíìmù tó léfò gan tààrà Podium Cinema mo bẹ́rí fún yín fíìmù mẹ́sàn-án ọ̀tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ ni wọ́n kó jáde àwọn gbàǹkọ́gbé fíìmù èkíní májẹ̀mú ẹ̀gbọ́n èkejì my wet ẹ̀kẹta ọmọ ẹni ẹ̀kẹrin àlàmú èkó ẹ̀karùn-ún àìmọ̀ ṣẹ̀wárí pé nǹkan kì í ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ràgó ó kọjá bẹ́ẹ̀ eléyìí lẹ́ti kẹjù èdè Yorùbá ni wọ́n fi ṣe àwọn fíìmù yìí ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kẹfà sẹ́ẹ̀kẹsàn-án èdè òyìnbó ni wọ́n kọ́ ẹ̀kẹfà tẹ́mà èkeje the casting ẹ̀kẹjọ M1 the detective ẹ̀kẹsàn 100 M1 the detective at 100 orí síríìsì lẹ́fì máa wò ó ìyẹn dàgbéléwò nìyẹn Podium International Podium Cinema ẹ fọ́lọ̀ wọn kẹ́ ẹ láìkì wọn lórí YouTube wọ́n wà lórí Facebook wọ́n wà lórí Instagram Podium Cinema ó ti dọbẹ̀ ẹ subscribe.
Good evening, our regular listeners. Thank you for joining us today on Matters Arising. We actually bring in some interesting topic that that would resonate in the minds of a lot of Nigerians and also Yorubas. I'm not here alone. I'm here with my fellow guests, fellow co-hosts. Baba Alex Oluwole Ajala, and we also have Dr. Sheyi Adesanya in the house. Baba Alex Ajala, you want to say hello to our listeners?
Yeah, I'm glad for having me on this program today again, and I wish whatever we are going to contribute will be of great meaning to our listeners.
Thank you very much. Let's welcome Dr. Sheyi Adesanya.
Hello, our wonderful viewers all over the world. We want to welcome you again to this broadcast. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, listeners, for joining us. In 2018, exactly, I think in May 2018, Nigeria became the world's capital, poverty capital of the world, overtaking India. I would say we didn't just overtake India; it's just statistics made it so. India has got a population of 1.4 billion, and they have about 80 million people who are suffering. So not even up to 10%. But Nigeria has got a population of over 200 million, and we've got nearly 100 million, which is 50%. So if you look at it in terms of population-wise, Nigeria was probably higher than India. But officially, we now overtook India in May 2018. Now, fast forward from 2018 to 2022. Now, a report by this Daily Times is now saying insecurity, climate change, famine is now driving more Nigerians into poverty. The Daily Times report says 133 million Nigerians are going to be dragged into poverty due to insecurity, climate change, and famine. And now we're going to play us a video, but before we play the video, we see Benue State. That's we call Benue the food basket of the nation. And many of the rice farms and other farms that are producing foods, they failed. And that's going to spell big problem for the nation. Before we play the video, I might just call Baba Alex Ajala. In the face of impending, I don't want to say famine, let me say shortage of food for next season. Will I say next season or next year? What would be your take now that the rice farm have all failed in Benue before we go to the video so that our guests can understand what we are talking about?
What we are facing now, before I continue, I will welcome our listeners to this program again. And what we are going to discuss is the impending uh, catastrophe, I will call it, of food supply. It's already happening. A bag of rice is now sold to almost 40,000 naira, approximately, in the south.
Even 50,000.
Whereas in the north, it's still about 8,000 naira because I I don't know if I have mentioned this in the last program where I think I was not present. I met someone from working in our department in London, the transport department, who happens to come from Niger. I'm praying that and espousing the fact that the division of their people between the French and the English, putting their people in Niger and some of their own relations with their kings and kings in Nigeria, has been the greatest tragedy that their people are facing. That is best for them to be together. That
Hmm.
the northern part, the Sharia states of the north, and Niger to form a country. That was coming from a citizen of
Niger. Hmm.
and that they've been looking at this thing from time even before independence. That if it was possible, and that's why some of the articles I've sent out about 1964 and even previous show that the North has always not seen itself as Nigeria. It affects development. It affects the control of waterways, which grudgingly the lie of National River Basin Authority was established under Sagari. And even now, Buhari had even corrupted the same situation by saying, if you're having a river basin authority, why are you saying that the farmers have no right to do anything within certain mileage along river valleys? What's the purpose of a river valley and the river flowing through it? Is it not to wet the lands for agriculture? Is it not to provide potable water for drinking? Is it not to provide uh, dams for electricity generation? Is it not to provide uh, fishing basins and even recreational activities and tourism? So when people lose distance, it's the prelude to creating a level for hunger. You are unable to develop your agriculture to the point which you need it. You are not even able to control this things artificially for agriculture. You even wait for the wetness of God's giving rain. And when it doesn't come, there's going to be failure of productivity. Presently in the south, there's the fourth aspect where the Fulani cattle areas are now populating our forest land to feed their cattle. Our forest land is not grassland.
Hmm.
So I don't know why our people are accepting the fact that they are in our land. I've said the statistics show that all the cattle in Nigeria, if they are distributed in the northern Sahelian belt, it will fill that place 18 times over and there'll still be land enough for agriculture in the north.
Bef-
So
be- be- be-
I don't know why.
yeah,
Because
before we go further, maybe we'll just tell our producer to help us play that video, and then we'll call Dr. Sheyi to help us analyze the gap between what our people need to do as a matter of urgency to ensure that there's food supply for next year, seeing that the crops have failed this year. Maybe we'll just wait for our producer to help us play. It's a Sky report that they've done to see how
And
it.
the waters of the River Benue have finally receded. The natural pace of life here seems to have been restored. But has it? Benue State is the food basket of Nigeria, Africa's most populous country. And though the deadly flooding has passed, the deeper damage will be felt in the months ahead.
But the rain just carry and go, nothing remain again. Some people Fulani eat their rice finish.
Nigerian households rely heavily on rice, and demand has outstripped supply in recent years. And now flooding has hampered production even more.
We were affected by the flood. Water came in full.
Bridget has been processing rice since 2015.
When I started, I was producing a ton and slightly above a ton of rice per day. And the coming of the flood so affected us. Even 1 to 2 bags we cannot even mill a day now as it is.
A majority of Nigeria's states have been impacted by unprecedented flooding that destroyed houses and left more than 1 million homeless. It's this damage to a developing economy that is at the heart of the climate justice debate. And at this year's climate conference, activists are demanding Western nations pay their ecological debt.
Look at the number of people that have died already. You want to wait until everyone in Africa is dead? This is the time for climate justice. And climate justice is human rights. Look at the farmers. It's not easy. All your income will go within one day.
We met farmers who have lost everything. Just a few of thousands who have seen their farmlands washed away.
All around here are crops that have been damaged by torrential rains that left this land flooded for around a month. And even though the floodwaters have receded, these are rice crops that are unharvestable in a country that relies on the crop to feed its population.
It's almost 100% loss because there will be no harvest.
So there's nothing usable here?
There is nothing usable here.
It's gone?
It's gone.
The most fertile land in the country, now waterlogged.
The rice could not stand the pressure of the water. And at the end of the day, we understand that the whole thing some has dried, some has rotten, and everything has gone. Look at it.
So almost every home eats rice. So, but you can see thousands of hectares of rice are washed away. So it's a signal that we experience hunger next year.
It's not just farmers here assessing the damage. Families rifle through the rot for anything they can mill and eat at home. And as world leaders discuss climate change, hunger tightens its grip. Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky News.
Yeah, Dr. Sheyi, we just saw that report by Sky News of what has happened. And it's unfortunate. Yoruba governors are not looking at what's holding them back. Now, we're saying 133 million people are now being forced into poverty. And Baba Jala made us understand that rice is sold in the north for 8,000 and in the south for almost 40,000. Look at the wide gap. There's no pushing away the fact. Rice is a staple food that we eat, and unfortunately we don't grow as much as we can. Isn't it time for sensible leadership to say there's a problem? Because we can say climate change is the problem, but if Thailand has rice, if Bangkok has rice, and our crops have failed, isn't it time to allow free market take its root and let people be able to afford to bring in this rice so that the ordinary man can have something to eat, rather than say, no, this is our policy, and then we'll starve all the people to death. What do you think should happen now, especially in the Yoruba states or the southern Nigeria that is being affected or going to be affected by this loss of food crops? So, yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. K. before I go to answer your question, let me use this opportunity to congratulate our producer, Titilola Aboyadeko, for putting on double feathers yesterday. She was inducted as a fellow of the Institute of Information Management in UK. And
A big congrats to her.
yes, and also
Congratulations.
a member of our advisory board of the institute. We send our congratulations to her.
And a very big thank you too for helping us produce our program.
Yeah, thank you so much. Now, going to your question, because I joined on Zoom, that's the the induction yesterday, and the guest speaker was talking about the importance of data, and I think he majored mostly on prisons, how data management can help our prison system, in Nigeria. And while what came to me was we gather a lot of data, because when you look at even in the Bible days, data, we see even God will say, give me so number of people, data is so important to the existence of mankind, of human beings. But unfortunately, we have a system in Nigeria. It's not as if we don't have data. We have what we call the National Bureau of Statistics, and they have, from time to time, they collect data. But one wonders what they do with this data after collecting them. Now, looking at the impact of the recent flooding in Nigeria, like I said, we've generated a lot of data. At least I think we've had that. We had over 600 deaths. We've had destruction of farmlands. About 440,000 hectares of farmland have been destroyed, and we also have over 200,000 homes. Partly or wholly destroyed. We also have over 2,400 people injured and about 1.4 million people displaced. And so the data, continues, on and on and on like that. But my problem is, like I just said, what do we do with all of this data? Okay, now coming to your question, what should our people be doing? And in fact, while I was trying to, ruminate over, what to say, I heard you talk about what should our governors. I think we should begin to disease from this erroneous belief that a certain crop, can only grow in a particular, part of the country, and that it cannot grow in other parts. And a major effect, as we have seen from that video, is the fact that, in fact, it's a fact, we are going to be faced with food scarcity. There will be high cost of the few available food that is available, and so what should we be doing for the people, for ordinary, people? The solution may be a bit difficult, but those who have all it takes to bring the solution are those who we refer to as the leaders. And I think this is where at the state level, the governors, should be looking at, solutions to these problems. Now, it is important, for each state to begin to look at, there's what we call in economics comparative cost advantage. What you can produce, very well, put all your resources, your energies into it. But as things are now, I mean, look at, I know that some, Osun State, for example, they started, the production of rice. And so that's why I said for a long time, we've had this erroneous belief that a certain crop cannot grow in some certain areas. I know they have experimented it in Osun State. I saw it myself. And so we have come to a time when, I mean, we need to put aside such beliefs. Let whatever can grow on our soil, let us begin to grow them. Let us begin to make, I don't know if, in those days we used to have these, storage facilities where excess food, crops are,
Silos.
silos, yes. So I don't really know what our governors are doing in terms of agriculture. And you see a lot of people jobless all around the place. Everyone has become almost a political jobber. These are people, and that is why I frown at those who say some people created job. You created jobs that would that's only meant, for these individuals to go out and begin to collect revenue from people. That is not creation of job. Let us create jobs that will, make
Deliver productivity.
exactly productivity. Let people be productive. We have a vast area of land in the southwest, and so I do not think that any of our governors, it is the responsibility of someone, people, to begin to tell them what to do in terms of agriculture now.
Let me quickly bring Baba Jala in, because from statistics we know that we have vast ocean land, and which invariably means we have sea, we have fish that we could exploit, and we see Nigeria importing fish from Norway. Do you think, or I don't know if it exists, is it time for us now to have a Yoruba agricultural board to really look at all the agricultural products we could be producing on our land? And because most nations will say, eat what you produce. It is true that we hardly produce rice, and I would say we are one of the highest consumers of rice outside of China or India. I would say Nigeria is another nation that consumes rice a lot. Even palm oil that we produce, and we thought countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, they are producing 30 million tons, 50 million tons, and we are struggling to produce 1 million tons. What is wrong with us? Do we need to have an agricultural board, or should we just leave it to a lot of people will say God will help us? Will God really help us, or will we really need to? Dr. Sheyi have said we have statistics, we have data. A lot of people are there waiting to get assistance to farm, waiting for support, and nothing is happening. Should we begin to look at getting this done? Getting a Yoruba agricultural board. What's your take, Babajala?
Well, we had that before, and we had the Western Nigerian Produce Board. It covered everything that is agriculture, and that led to this the setup of institutes, agricultural institutes all over, like the one I keep on ringing the bell about to remind our people, the School of Agric Akure, and the the school attached to it, which was the Community Agricultural Institute for teachers to learn these things. And they have a vast database, which is still in Ibadan, although it's rotting away. And I happen to be a student of that area of learning. Most of our land produce rice, cotton, and groundnut. They are just abandoned. And if we open the map of Western Nigeria, we see that if we really start to re-energize our productivity, we don't need to import any rice from even any sub-region within that country called Nigeria. We were not eating rice or yam from the north or tomato or anything up to and including the late 1960s. This land is still there. We have abandoned it because of the federal policies on productivity and agriculture and the use of land. The land use decree is anathema to development. It does not allow people who have right of ownership to use the land they have as a collateral to borrow money from the banks to develop such lands, either for agriculture or housing. That's another area I have contacted several legal scholars who are of Yoruba origin with some of the documents I have, which includes this one I'm going to try to show, the futility of land use decree by
in 1978. That's by Obasanjo.
No, that he established it, but this particular write-up is by Adedapo Adeniran, a legal luminary who had just passed on, living at number 34 of Bangboshe in Lagos. He happens
I
to
know
be a
Bangboshe
mentor.
very well.
Yeah, he happens to be one of my mentors because I learned more about land and land matters. We don't have land records properly in Nigeria because of that land use decree pamphlet I showed you. It does not allow the people free use of their land. And when I say free use, that is able to generate capital because of ownership of such lands. That's what happens worldwide. The Nigerian experience opposite is even worse than a communist control over land, where the communal use of land is predicated on you working without pay for the glory of the so-called communist control. That I believe Dr. Shei knows what I'm talking about. So that affects, we are actually running a pseudo-communist environment whereby everything is controlled at the center, whereby even those things that are supposed to be controlled by the regions are also controlled by the center. So at the end of the day, you have a catch-22 situation whereby you cannot develop. A lot of our land all over. I will give examples of, in fact, I have traveled most of Nigeria, particularly Western Nigeria. Let's take Otranye-Gbaju. It's a city between two hills, mountains. On the obverse of the western part of Otranye-Gbaju is vast grassland that could be used for local cattle rearing, and which is also going to be able to support market gardening, producing fruits and vegetables. If you now partition the land into usable plots, the cattle will stay on one land for 1 year, they move to the other. When you come, after a year, you cultivate that land because of the fertility, and you go around and round and round. These are very simple things to adopt, but it appears
it doesn't cost money. To all those things don't cost money.
Yes, because these are the things that pains my heart. I will take an example. I will not mention his name. He's a good friend of mine, comes from Otranye-Gbaju. acquired about 200 heads of cattle. And when he said he was bringing them back to his homeland, and because I know the place, I was so happy. And I felt that, oh, he's now going to take usage of that grassland just on the obverse of the mountain and have a cattle run. I never knew. I was thinking for him without telling him, because I felt because he's of a higher degree than myself. He has a PhD and he's worked with government. He has even gone to
You understood the terrain.
Carpentry, and he's a builder, just like me, because we were building homes together in the earlier parts of the 60s in our different areas. I thought he was going to establish that, only to hear that he left the cattle for these Fulanis. By the time he reached the level of 600 heads of cattle, they just vanished. You see, some of the forces in us not believing in the fact that we can, and don't believing in the fact that we can challenge the federal government, even to the high court, that your control of land and land matters
is illegal.
Poverty to everybody.
We took the federal government to court on VAT. I've just been informed by by the producer that we're going to have adverts now. So
okay.
Yeah, after that we'll look at these matters and then go to the next item on our agenda. Thank you.
Come one, come all to Podium Function Hall, a place for your network sessions, birthday parties, private parties, expos, conferences, seminars, and master classes. Podium Function Hall is the place to be. With a hall capacity of 50 plus, full air condition, starboard and standby generator, with location in Ikota Villa, Mega Chicken Bus Stop. Contact us on 0701 844 8188 or +44 7442 177 677. Podium Function Hall, events made alive.
kéré o gbogbo ọmọ káàró òjìrè ọmọ Yorùbá káàkiri àgbáyé ẹ máa gbọ́ ètò yìí Yorùbá self determination movement dialogue, ètò ìfọ̀rọ̀jomitoro ọ̀rọ̀ nípa ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ni níbo ni ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ti ń bọ̀, níbo la dé dúró, níbo la ń lọ, báwo la ṣe fẹ́ ṣe é tí kò fi mọ̀ ké bí eku nílẹ̀ Yorùbá, tí yóò fi mọ̀ ké bí ẹyẹ nílẹ̀ Yorùbá, tọ́mọ èèyàn fi mọ̀ fọhùn bí ọmọ èèyàn nílẹ̀ Yorùbá. Ó dọwọ́ èmi àti ẹ jẹ́ ká parapọ̀ kájọ gbélẹ̀ Yorùbá lárugẹ, sẹ́ni tó sọ lẹ́nu onítọ̀hún sàkóyà kọ́ni. Yorùbá self determination movement dialogue, a máa rí ètò yìí wò lórí YSDM Global TV, YSDM YouTube channel, YSDM Facebook page. Fẹ́kùnrẹ́rẹ́ àlàyé ẹ pè nọ́mbà yìí +44 744 21 77 677 tàbí +121 5206 766 5. A gbé ètò yìí kalẹ̀ fún ìtẹ̀síwájú àgbéga ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ni, ẹ jẹ́ ká jọ ṣe é.
Yeah, welcome back to today's program. We're looking at the many more lives that are many more people that have been drawn into poverty in our land. And because of time, we'll go quickly to our next topic, which is emergency control, safety. Safety is everything. Safety, we cannot overemphasize safety. But it seems that does not apply when it comes to Nigeria. We always think that everything has to be God. Maybe if my producer is able to play us our next video, we can see what I'm talking about. We don't have any emergency. Well, we can see, Dr. Shei, what has happened to us? 200, you talked about data earlier, you talked about statistics. 200 million people, and we cannot have fire services adequately located in areas where, if there's such situation, it can be tackled immediately. It's an eyesore. And we will see some people who are just strolling past feeling unconcerned. What are Nigerians waiting for? Are they waiting for Americans to come develop the land for them? Are they waiting for Fulani? Are they waiting for the governors? What can you and I start doing to tackle it? Is it just to talk about it? What can we do to start physically tackling these challenges?
Thank you, Mr. K. Again, I am laughing. Like I said the other time, it's not, it's a pain, literally, it's a pain within my heart. Emergencies happen all over the world. Disasters happen, either natural or man-made, Um, now, the question is, like you have asked, what is the level of our, response, emergency response, or level of preparedness for all of these things? It's so sad because, many years ago, I was still teaching in the OOU then, as Olabisi Onabanjo, and I think myself, another colleague, and two professors, we are just strolling, on the corridor. We were talking about the, situation in the country then, especially the energy situation then. And the colleague was saying, the moment we are able to solve the light problem, that's going to be all. And I said, no. The solution is not about solving the light problem. The solution lies in us solving the problem within the polity. Because when we are able to get it right in the polity, that is when it affects every other sector. That is when we are able to bring on board governance people who are willing, people who have good conscience, people who are committed to development of their people and, of course, of the country. Until we get to that point, you should forget it. It's not about light problem. When we get it right there in the polity, every other thing would, fall in place. Now,
okay, go on. I know it's election time. Maybe I should bring Baba Jala on. It's not as if we don't have fire services, because I know this happened in Lagos, and it's not as if we don't have fire services. Baba Jala, is it that our people don't take emergency seriously? Because this is a matter of fire services, and I know some hospitals have ambulances, not many of them, but some of the few. We see a lot of people dying needlessly because either ambulance is not gone to pick them up on time, or maybe they've picked them up on time, but there are no doctors in the hospitals to attend to them. Baba Jala, fire. I know we have federal fire services. Should local governments, let's even come to the local community, should local governments start, or should landlords, or should people say, we want to keep our community safe, let's make a space for fire services in case there is an emergency? What's your take? Because we need to be coming up with practical solutions now, rather than just saying the governors, the Senate. Election is coming now, and majority of them are planning for election, rather than look at governance. They focus on the pittance they will share to people for election.
We don't have fire services. We have pseudo fire services. I grew up into it. I keep on repeating. I know when everything died. There was a very sad case when the market near the railway crossing in Ibadan, Baggy and Ogunpa, this thing. The fire hydrants the white men built during their watch over our development, which was working
before they left,
to about 1962. And a fire hydrant is supposed to be serviced every 6 months to show if it has enough pressure in case of a fire. When a fire truck gets there, it can plug in and spray. We have pseudo fire services. They have some rickety areas. They have put some trucks, some ancient trucks called fire trucks all over. In fact, in Lagos, at some time there was none because I was monitoring. Like I keep on repeating, I've monitored and studied our area over the years growing up. I travel. So the baggy one, the same thing, Cocoa House. Even though they brought fire trucks from Lagos and everywhere, there was no fire hydrant to provide water. Cocoa House burnt down in 1984. I was involved in the case of Cocoa House somehow to prove that somebody who claimed to have burned the place down was about hiding the fact that he was owing a certain bank. And that bank, he has never, ever deposited a penny into that bank. They only wanted a scapegoat. Scapegoating has started. You see, it is also impacting on security, fire, and so on. Because fire problem is a security issue.
Yeah.
It burns down places. It burns down records. It burns down the future. It burns down everything, archival materials that might not be described. And with Nigeria, where we don't have copies, a lot of things have been burnt down. And some documents which I happen to have seen with my uncle cannot be found in most of the federal government libraries. It cannot. So part of the fire problem that we are facing, like I said, we have pseudo fire services. Look at Lagos. Everybody's digging personal boreholes. Where are the fire hydrants? If there's a fire, like the situation we're seeing in Lagos, if there were fire hydrants along as spaced out locations, a fire truck would come and plug it in and bring down the fire. Look at you don't blame those throwing stones because they have never seen a fire truck plugging into a fire hydrant to pump water out to put down the fire. There was a case of one solitary fire hydrant they saw in one location in Lagos one time when there was a fire. The fire truck, knowing that they can use it, plugged it in, and there was not a single drop of water because the fire hydrant had never been tested over the years if it had a drop of water in it. What we are facing in Nigeria is that we are facing the situation, like you said, the polity, analyzing the polity. Do we want to stay together and grow into this mayhem and suffering that we are in? This is where I keep on coming back to that narrative. If we do not answer that question correctly, we will continue to suffer, and the Yoruba race will either at some point be driven out of their land. It has happened to some nations of the world. And like I would say, Nigeria is not a nation. It's an aggregate of several nations, ethnic nationalities that have nothing in common. And it affects everything that is called development, which includes this topic we are discussing. And where the president says you cannot tap water from the rivers because it belongs to the federal government. What the hell? We should grow up. We should campaign to our people to see that is the election coming is not the issue. It's the future of our people, whether you are Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa. Let us agree that we have nothing in common. We are destroying ourselves. If I look at that horrible fire, why were they throwing stone? They felt maybe if they throw the
It was
stone,
pure water.
the air will go into it, and perhaps even when the air goes, so you are even fueling the fire again because oxygen will follow the opening, and you fuel the fire, and then it grows. See, because of lack of education, we don't have a network of hydrants in our cities. These things was built by the colonial masters, but they have all been destroyed. I just mentioned that of Lagos when they thought there could be water, but when they think back, have we serviced that hydrant anytime? No.
Dr. Shey, you mentioned something about polity, and before we go to our next topic, we're just going to look at that polity, that question of polity, and see that the polity of Nigeria is wrong. The way it is concentrated now, Nigeria, when it was formed, was not supposed to be that way. Can't the Yoruba leaders, and I mean all the Yoruba leaders, irrespective of what Nigeria says or what Nigeria does or what Nigeria is doing, to say, let us address Yoruba problem. If it is each state putting pause together to tackle problems that affect Yoruba collectively, rather than waiting, because I believe if they had done that, or if they do that, that would force a sort of how will I call it, the federal government to think again and say, no, these Yoruba people are acting wisely. Because we remember when the Babajala was saying about fire issue is security issue. Now, when the North created Hisba Police, they didn't wait for approval from the South to create Hisba Police. It took a lot of, we can do it, we cannot do it, before Amoteku was created for the Southwest to say, see, the lives of our people are now in danger. Can't the Yoruba governors all come together and say, from our state allocation, we want to develop agriculture, or we want to develop health, or we want to develop infrastructure, or we want to do, is it too much for them, or is it that they're not thinking about their people, or they are scared of the next ticket? What do you think the Yoruba as a collective can do to their own polity and change the lives of their people for the better?
Thank you, Mr. Okay. There's so much within the question that you have asked. Looking at it from a larger picture, talk about the polity. If let me quickly just finish my line of thought from the other question. We talk about people. I mean, I think I just read online the Lagos State Governor proposing to buy some numbers of fire fighting vehicles, blah blah blah, and all of that. One of the things that I believe that we need to change when we talk about the polity is bringing on board people who have good conscience. People who truly have a mind to build a great country. People who are not corrupt, in any form, in any way. Now, you've had cases of, people going to buy firefighting vehicles that have been abandoned, out of use, and then they take them back home, and these vehicles will only work. In fact, most of them don't even work. The day they want to take them out to go and fight fire, you discover that something is wrong.
That's what you're
that
about
is
to
the
say.
Aha. So you see, and then the lack of our maintenance culture, I mean, just like Baba Ajala said, we have all of these fire hydrants, I'm not sure that our governments have in the last 20 or 30 years attempted to build any of these fire, hydrants, in our cities, so let alone servicing the ones that were left by the colonial masters, And so now, what should we be doing? What should we be doing? The answer is straightforward. They say there's a saying that you have been doing something over and over and over again,
You need to
you
try
will
a
be
new
getting the
approach.
same result. I mean, it's a zero result. It's negative. I mean, I think common sense, uh, should suggest that it is time for you to, try some other option. And the only other option that we have, as a people who believe that we have, I think we are discussing that sometime maybe earlier, that a lot of us don't seem to understand the place of the Yoruba race, in the scheme of
In the
things in the whole world.
development of Africa, not just even Nigeria.
Not even Africa alone, the black race. We don't seem to understand. I see this from a divine point of view, apart from, the other points of view. It is also divine. And like I said sometimes ago, the Yoruba race has a mandate. It's a divine mandate to emancipate the black race. But then we are also in captivity. Yeah, we are. And until
our case is like Samson, who is in bondage and who is supposed to free the Israelites.
Yeah. So until we are able to free ourselves, we cannot, mark that, we cannot carry out
So
that.
for those who are still believing that, because we saw for the first time in 2020, the Southern Governors meeting, Southern Governors Forum. And that was at the back of the Yoruba Nation campaigners saying enough is enough. We're pulling out of Nigeria. You governors, if you don't do anything, and the Northern Governors Forum has been going on for over 50 years, and we are having it for the first time in the South. Is it that the so-called leaders in the South are timid, or they are? Let's bring Baba Ajala on. Maybe Baba Ajala can answer this question. What's happened for so long that for over 60 years, it's taken the Yoruba campaigners to say enough is enough before the Southern governors can even sit for the first time to resist Ruga or whatever?
The problem with our Southern leadership is that they erroneously believe that Nigeria was created for the North, and which is not true. Even those who created the marketplace called the North had warned in 1919 that we should not have anything to do with them. But we refused. Rather, we took the bell of nationalism. And so we are scared of telling the world, which the world was expecting. For a long time, even after independence, 2 years after independence, some countries of the West and even the East were expecting the Yoruba race to exit Nigeria. But we refused, thinking that Britain and America are not going to allow us. Did we give a reason why we cannot continue? We didn't. We were always assuming that somebody is going to stop us. And that has affected our thinking cap. And that's what I've always advocated, that we should free ourselves from that bondage that we created. Some of our leaders were always talking about a great Nigeria. Then I asked myself, what great Nigeria? Not because my grandfather told me anything, but because of myself already learning to understand what is Nigeria. I believe it's a destruction of the black race. And
exactly.
luckily,
I so agree
at
with
some
you.
point, 1988 or so,
that's correct.
Leopold Senghor said that for Africa to develop, Nigeria has to dissolve. The president of Senegal said it. If you go back to records. So you see,
talking about development.
Yeah.
Go on, Babajala.
This is why, if only the Yoruba race believed in themselves, other than saying that most Nigerians believe that Nigeria should stay. The question was, who are the most Nigerians at that time, 1957?
I don't know. Colonized Nigerians.
Not that. There were most Nigerians were in the West. Did they actually believe the Bibos and Hausas and want to have Nigeria to stay? And if up to now that I'm talking, the Northerners don't regard themselves as Nigerians.
I will tell you that
they are from the north.
50% of the people who are even campaigning are telling me, oh, we are only who are campaigning for candidates for presidency. They are saying it's because we've not got Yoruba nation or we've not got Biafra nation that let's just do this one. But talking about development, the World Cup has just started now, and Qatar is how will I put it? Nigeria is 100 times bigger than Qatar, both in size, in population, in geography. I can't talk about wealth because Qatar has done better for themselves. And they brought a World Cup. They brought the world to their doorstep. Take for instance, I know Nigeria can never. It's not that I'm swearing for Nigeria, but Nigeria can never host the World Cup. We don't have that capacity to host the World Cup with the level of poverty we've placed our people. An independent Yoruba nation. How long, if we have an independent Yoruba nation, a sovereign Yoruba nation, how long do you think it will take for that nation to prepare to host not just African Cup, the World Cup, and the Olympics?
Well, I want to quickly jump into this. If we put in place all the infrastructural development and those aspects of the build of the country called the Yoruba sovereign nation, we will have the infrastructure that will be able, that has the capacity to run this things. Because most of our big towns and villages will have stadiums, playgrounds, country-run tracks in our forest lands. Like I participated when I was growing up. Is there any country-run anymore in any school?
There's no even local parks.
So we were going to recreate all these things. And some places in Lagos itself have to be demolished to create parks, particularly around Surulere. And Lagos. Hold on. We will now be able, when we put this in place, the world will be watching, seeing a very viral and healthy people in Yoruba sovereign nation all over participating in sports, in tennis. Do we participate in lawn tennis anymore? Way back many years, there was the Lord Rumen Classic that was part of the international tennis circuit in those days. Lord Rumen, if you remember, Dr. Adesanya. At that time, some international players used to come to Lagos. Suddenly, when what's his name? Babangida brought his SAP.
Structural Adjustment Program.
The funding devalued it, so nobody was coming to Nigeria anymore. They enjoyed it that time, even though it was Lagos. But these things were deliberately destroyed, including our industries. You see, we will now recreate, Ikeja industrial estate will grow up again we will buy out the churches there. Let them relocate to other places. We revive our factories. We buy out the churches. And in fact, in buying out the churches, the people who attend the churches will have
talking
jobs.
about development. I live in a very small town I live in a village actually in UK.
And even
And right
towns
in
and
my
villages, you
doorstep, there
have.
is an
In
industrial
fact, when I was growing up, our small town had a maypole, like you have in Germany in most towns, and playgrounds, tennis courts. They were out there in the villages.
So,
Where do you have them anymore?
Can I just add this?
Yes.
Sorry to cut you, sir. Like some of our somebody who is watching us is saying, please educate our youth more. Now those days while we were growing up in Surulere, in fact, not almost every street had their own first 11.
Yeah.
And I remember in Lagos Island, I was born in Lagos Island. What's it called? I'll remember now.
Is it Idumota?
Not Idumota. Just in between Lagos Island and Ikoyi. I've forgotten. I'll remember. Okesu, no, area.
Okay.
Pike,
Just behind the Bangboshe side.
Yeah, after Bangboshe towards going to Ikoyi. Now, in the whole of Lagos Island, every area had their own, open space that I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's one in I've forgotten all of these areas.
There was the race course in the middle.
In the middle. Race course was in the middle.
Which
Then
they
had all this.
Tafawa Balewa Square.
Exactly.
One Shimbe, if I want to tell you, there was
yeah. You see, we have most of these are youths whose energy are being channeled towards other areas that does not even bring them any good now. You know what sporting activities did? It exposed a lot of our youth then. A lot of them traveled. We are able to travel abroad and make lives meaningful for themselves. And that is what we hope to restore. We are going to bring back all of this. It's like a lost glory.
You remember Ikoyi Park and the lake?
Yes, all of those parks. So these are the things that, by the grace of God, we hope to restore.
I mean, we can't overemphasize it. The only way Yoruba nation can, the Yoruba people can have anything meaningful is to go back and have an independent Yoruba nation. We've seen our glory days. Perhaps if 1952 to 1962 never came, maybe a lot of people will be scared that, we can't do it again. We can't do it alone. But thank God for the years of between 1952 and 1962. People now believe that we've done it before and we can do it
again.
Yeah, sure.
And we can even not just do it again, we can even do it better. So, and I have faith because looking at 1914, looking at 1952, and looking at 2022, as at 1957, 1959, Malaysia, Indonesia were not producing palm oil. They came to our land to collect seed, to go and plant, to go and see whether it will be fertile in their land. And today, Indonesia is producing 50 million tons of palm oil. Malaysia is producing over 39 million tons. And we that have arable land are producing just 1 million. Look at the gap.
Singapore was a fishing community in the 60s. Look at Singapore.
If you want to speak
look at the gap. Look at our seashore, and we are importing fish from Norway.
From Norway.
For goodness sake, we can have a shipbuilding yard all around the coast.
There was one before in Ekpe.
Not just one, because maybe because we were building one, they were destroying it.
No,
we will have more than 50 shipping building companies
a lot
and
of
ate
ships.
all the coast down to the is it the southern pole. I know the North Pole and the South Pole, where a lot of geological activities are going on. So maybe that's what Yoruba needs to be looking at and be creating jobs in those environments rather than having Agbero standing on the bus stop and collecting money from transport drivers and making life miserable for the people. Anyway, this is where we will end it for today. But before we go, maybe Dr. Adesoya can give us his parting word to our listeners and our viewers.
Yes, the parting word that I'm going to give to our listeners or those who are watching us is that the glory of those days will be restored and can only be restored when we have our sovereign Yoruba country. Those who brought us to this level of this level of decadence, they are the ones who are still routing for political solution to this issue. There's no political solution to it. The only solution is that we take our destinies in our own hands, have a sovereign Yoruba country. That is it.
Thank you very much. Baba Jala, any parting words for our viewers today?
I will use Dr. Adesanya's understand that we need to dissolve Nigeria as it is. It was created as a temporary measure in part and in place in 1913 and was declared in 1914, January 12 on a Thursday, 1914, as a trading post called Nigeria at the expense of the French. It was not meant for us. And so we have a right, an inalienable right, to call for the dissolution of the place, because the Yoruba race has tried to prop it up over the years, and that heavy burden has destroyed our development. Allow what this man said in 1915 before he died, the first lawyer from Yoruba land who trained in this thing.
Is this Sakpara Williams?
Sakpara Williams. I said Yoruba land because he was not born a Nigerian. Because I was not a Nigerian when he became a quiz consul in the 1840s. We make the mistake of ascribing our people's descent to Yoruba land.
Yeah,
we should look at the chronology. And that's one thing we should educate our youth about.
Exactly.
There was never a Nigeria before 1914.
Sure.
It was created as a trading post at the
and they
expense
just gave
of
it
the
a
French.
name. They just gave it a name, Nigeria, and we want to.
We
a lot
should
of
have
people want
been
to kill.
called some
A lot of
funny
people want
names.
to kill themselves to protect what they don't even know how it came into being.
Yeah. So on a jocular form, Nigeria could have been called Nigritia. That name was penned on the desk of Chamberlain, one of the colonial officers in Britain here. They suggested that name, Nigritia, or New Sudan, or Niger Sudan, until we ended up with a lady who felt, oh, you are talking about a territory that River Niger flows through. But I always say, any point on the River Niger could have been called Nigeria, not necessarily the location.
Even in Guinea,
where it is. She suggested that. Yeah, even from Futajalon, where it comes from, could be called Nigeria. So nobody should be proud and say, oh, I'm a Nigerian or patriotic. It's a figment of imagination. Even Thatcher, a prime minister of Great Britain, said in her book that it's an artificial country, and she does not know why people are so laid back and think it will work. Yet we say British that is putting us down. It is not. It is our own lack of thinking. Thank you. We will discuss this further in our next program. Thank you
No
very
problem.
much. Wake up, all
Our
Yoruba
listeners-
youth and elders. We don't have a country. The only country we have is a Yoruba
our
sovereign
Yoruba
nation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, viewers. That's all we can bring to you today. Thank you for joining us, and we look to seeing you again next week when we come with more exciting topics on matters arising. God bless you.
lọ́jọ́kọ́jọ́ là ń bẹ̀wé kúkú dùkú lóko podium international wọ́n ti wà tipẹ́tipẹ́ látìgbà tí wọ́n ti ń bàbọ̀ wọn ò fìgbà kan tẹ́rì o wọ́n ti wá ṣe bẹ̀bẹ̀ wọ́n ti gbé bẹ̀bẹ̀ dé podium cinema ni wọ́n tún gbé dé podium cinema lórí YouTube ẹ fọ́lọ̀ wọn kẹ́ ẹ láìkì wọn kẹ́ ẹ subscribe ibẹ̀ lẹ́tì mọ̀ wọ àwọn àjẹ́ àbálẹ̀ fíìmù ẹ̀dọ̀kí fíìmù tó léfò gan tààrà podium cinema mo bẹ́rí fún yín fíìmù mẹ́sàn-án ọ̀tọ̀ọ̀tọ̀ ni wọ́n kó jáde o àwọn gbàǹkọ́gbé fíìmù èkíní májẹ̀mú ẹ̀gbọ́n èkejì my wet ẹ̀kẹta ọmọ ẹni ẹ̀kẹrin àlàmú èkó ẹ̀karùn-ún àìmọ̀ ṣẹ̀wárí pé nǹkan kì í ṣẹ̀ṣẹ̀ ràgó ó kọjá bẹ́ẹ̀ eléyìí lẹ́ti kẹjù èdè Yorùbá ni wọ́n fi ṣe àwọn fíìmù yìí ẹlẹ́ẹ̀kẹfà sẹ́ẹ̀kẹsàn-án èdè òyìnbó ni wọ́n kọ́ ẹ̀kẹfà tẹ́mà èkeje the casting ẹ̀kẹjọ M1 the detective ẹ̀kẹsàn 100 M1 the detective at 100 orí síríìsì lẹ́fì máa wò ó ìyẹn dàgbéléwò nìyẹn podium international podium cinema ẹ fọ́lọ̀ wọn kẹ́ ẹ láìkí wọn